In life, the concept of opposition is almost inevitable, and the notion of adversity is undefeated. It happens to all of us, no matter our genetic makeup or source of our generational wealth. Life has a way of scripting unique stories that are connected to all of us. And our diversified response to life events ultimately will determine how successful and prosperous our time on Earth will truly be. For a lot of us, part of the American culture is football and embracing all of the wisdom and camaraderie that game has to offer. We play it in part for the relational aspects that the game has to offer all of us and how it can impact our lives. For my friend Ken Kunken, back in the 1970s, he was on a football field and his life changed forever. He became a part of the population, 1 in 50 Americans who have experienced some form of paralysis, or 5.4 million people, according to the Cleveland Clinic. Ken Kunken broke his neck playing football for Cornell University in 1970, leaving him almost totally paralyzed from the shoulders down, and following a lengthy hospitalization, Kunken returned to Cornell University, where he completed his undergraduate degree in engineering. Throughout the course of his life, he's been honored for his perseverance and determination, and he also spent nearly 40 years in law after graduating law school, and he's been honored for his determination to succeed, and he met the love of his life at the age of 52, and through the miracle of in vitro fertilization, Kunken and his wife Anna were able to welcome triplets into the world. If you do nothing else of significance throughout the course of the rest of your week, I implore you to stick around to hear the encouraging and inspiring story of Kunken and his journey of resilience, dogged perseverance, and so much more. After hearing his story, you'll be inspired to get up and make a meaningful and impactful difference. So, without further delay, I'm Kevin McShann. Let's have this conversation. If you're ready, my friend, I'll welcome you to the program, and I'm super excited to dive into your exciting and exhilarating life, my friend. Great to see you, and thank you for a few minutes.
Great.
Absolutely. Now, can I know that back in 1970 you suffered a football injury that changed your life, my friend, and I'm wondering if you can reflect back on that time in your life and how it impacted you, my friend.
Okay, well, I was injured in a lightweight football game at Cornell University, which is in upstate New York. And it happened on October 31st, 1970. And what happened was during the game, we had just scored a touchdown and we're now leading in a game against Columbia 16-0. And we were about to kick off to Columbia. Now, normally I'm not in on the kickoff squad, but on the first play of the game, one of our players was injured. So I was only in on this play because I was taking this other person's place. So on the kickoff, I ran down the field, tackled the ball carrier, and when I did, I felt an electric shock shoot through my body and like a stinging numbness go through my body. And suddenly I lost all sensation below my shoulders and became totally paralyzed. I couldn't move at all.
And tell me, Ken, how do you view the concept of resilience, considering what you've been through, my friend? How do you view the concept of resilience?
Well, I was injured when I was 20 years old. And I just said to myself, 20 years old is just too young to give up on life. I believe I still had a lot of life to live, and I was determined to lead a useful, productive, rewarding, and happy life. So I knew that I needed to make the most of a bad situation. And I was very fortunate that I had a wonderful, wonderful family that encouraged me and supported me and helped me every step of the way.
Yeah, absolutely. It's all about building a network of support, isn't it?
It sure is.
Absolutely. And can I know why you were still a patient recovering from your injury, my friend? You testified before the U.S. Senate Subcommittee on a committee on health care, which was chaired by Senator Edward Kennedy, my friend. So I'm wondering if you can tell me about that experience and how it impacted you, my friend.
Well, I was asked to testify basically because my father sold insurance, and the Senate Health Subcommittee really wanted to hear from an insurance salesman that would say that there would be no insurance policy adequate enough to cover an injury such as mine. So my father was actually the main witness they wanted to hear from, and I was there basically to put a human face on it. So I had the opportunity to testify before Senator Kennedy and Senator Peter Dominic from Colorado to talk about what my injury entailed, and my father talked about what the expenses were that were involved in it.
Yeah, absolutely. And what sort of a difference, or what do you remember most about that experience that still sticks with you today, my friend?
It sure does. Well, there are a number of things. Firstly, when I was injured, I injured my neck and not my head, but it seemed like from the moment of my injury, I was treated like I didn't have a brain and that I couldn't think for myself. And I was very disappointed the way the medical profession was treating me while I was in the hospital. And here I was now seated before two United States senators who looked like they were paying very close attention to what I was saying and what I was testifying to. And I really appreciated the opportunity to be not only seen but heard by United States senators and to be able to talk about what I was going through.
Yeah, and I'm curious, was that a cathartic experience for you? Did you enjoy that experience?
I liked the opportunity to be able to talk about what I was going through and have people listen to what I was saying. And I liked the fact that I felt we were able to make a difference in other people's lives by making a difference in what type of healthcare legislation would hopefully be passed that would help people that were suffering life-altering injuries such as I was to get healthcare that they needed without being bankrupted by the expenses. And after my testimony, I just might add that 8 days after I testified, Senator Kennedy sent me a glass paperweight in the mail that had an inscription on it that the senator said his late brother Robert Kennedy liked very much. And the words on that inscription have always been very meaningful to me. And the quotation read, "Some men see things as they are and say why. I dream of things that never were and say why not." And that last part, "I dream of things that never were," has always been so meaningful to me because that's how I've decided to live my life.
Yeah, it's all about, Ken, I always say the only level of expectations we have to meet are our own, right? Because if you don't have a personal level of expectation, it's hard to rise to the level of anybody else's, right?
Absolutely.
Absolutely, my friend. And I know, Ken, you were the first quadriplegic to graduate from Cornell University, my friend. So tell me about how you hold that honor to this day, my friend, and what does that mean to you?
It means a tremendous amount. As I said, when I was injured, people seemed to give me very little hope of ever leading a productive life. And in the rehabilitation facility, they seemed to feel like the best I would ever be able to accomplish if I was able to get a job would be to sell magazine subscriptions over the telephone. Now, I was determined to do more than that. And I knew as a result of my physical limitations, I had to make the most of my mental abilities. So I knew I needed to get back to school, resume my education, and get the best education possible. And that's why I returned to Cornell University, where I was a junior majoring in industrial engineering at the time I was injured. And when you indicated that I'm the first quadriplegic to ever graduate from Cornell, one of the reasons for that was at that time, Cornell was not very conducive to people with disabilities. Its campus was on a very hilly terrain. Its climate was usually very cold, and there was not one ramp or curb cut on the entire campus. And virtually every one of its buildings had steps. On my first day of classes, I had to be either pulled up or bounced down close to 100 steps just to attend my first day. So I was thrilled that with the help of my fellow classmates and my personal care attendants, I was able to continue my education at Cornell and completed the final 2 years of my undergraduate degree during those next 2 years to become the first quadriplegic to ever graduate from Cornell.
Yeah, absolutely. And taking a 30,000-foot view of your life, Ken, I'm curious, what words of wisdom or advice would you give to anyone watching or listening to this who has experienced adversity in their lives and how to overcome obstacles and adversity to experience prosperity? What would you tell them, my friend?
Well, there are a number of things. First, never lose hope, right? I think it's very important to keep hope active in your life. But also, I feel that, everyone has the innate ability to handle life and handle difficult situations. But I think everybody also has a certain inner strength within them that enables people to rise to the occasion and tackle almost insurmountable odds. And while everybody might feel initially that something just looks too difficult to do, I think with the proper help, care, and support, and the proper attitude and motivation on your part, you can accomplish more than just about anybody ever dreamed you'd be able to do.
Yeah, absolutely. And Ken, I'm curious to ask you about the concept of mentorship, my friend, because I know education and supporting folks with disabilities is vitally important to you. And, Ken, one of the reasons I wanted to talk to you today, my friend, was because, I was actually born with cerebral palsy, my friend, and I found out at the age of 9 that I wouldn't be able to walk for the duration of my life without assistance. And I always say that everyone's portrait of success is different. We all paint a different picture in life, in my view. And I'm curious to ask you about the strides that we've made from an educational perspective on the rights and sort of the capabilities of folks with disabilities, and why is it important for you to have that educational lens for people when advocating for folks with disabilities? What are your thoughts there?
Well, when I was injured, I didn't know of anybody else in my situation with my physical limitations that seemed to be doing productive things in their lives. I met a number of people in the rehab facility who seemed to be just sitting home and not doing much other than watching television. And I don't fault them for that. I fault the medical profession and the people around them for keeping such low expectations for people. People seem to believe that once you have a disability, that covers your entire body, your entire being, and that if you have one type of disability, you're totally disabled. And that's not the case. People need to be aware that they can make the most of what abilities they do have, whether they have physical or mental limitations. Make the most of the abilities you still have, and keep your expectations high for yourselves as well as for others, because people's expectations often have a determining factor on what others eventually are able to do, because people's performance often rises and falls based on what others expect of them. So it's so important to keep your expectations high. And I was hoping that maybe I could be an example to others, to open doors for others, to show that there's an awful lot you can do with a disability.
Yeah, couldn't agree with you more, my friend. And I know that you've advocated for the affirmative action and non-discrimination towards the employment of folks with disabilities. And I know back in 1977, you were named the Long Island Rehabilitation Association Rehabilitant of the Year, my friend. So you've been going through this for a while, as you said, and I'm curious to get your thoughts on what that honor means to you, my friend. And I know that you were also in 1979 on a national syndicated radio broadcast called The American Character. So tell me about those experiences and advocating for folks with disabilities and why that's so important to you.
Well, Kevin, when I was injured, as I indicated, very few people gave me a chance of not only leading a productive life, but ever working again in a profession. And I was determined to get a very good education and then go out and get a job. So I got a bachelor's degree from Cornell University in industrial engineering, a Master of Arts degree from Cornell University in counseling and student personnel administration, where I became the first quadriplegic to get a graduate degree from Cornell as well. And then I got a graduate degree from Columbia University, a Master of Education degree in psychological counseling and rehabilitation, 3 prestigious degrees, 2 master's degrees, and no one would hire me, Kevin. Everyone felt I was just too disabled to work. And I looked for a job for a year. I even offered to volunteer my services, and people wouldn't hire me. They just felt because of my disability, I would not be able to function in an office. And I'm so proud to say that Dr. Henry Viscardi Jr. here on Long Island hired me to work as a vocational rehabilitation counselor. And he gave me the opportunity to show what I could do. And once I showed people that I could work and work well, that's why I received the Long Island Rehabilitation Association's Rehabilitant of the Year Award. And that's why the Reverend Norman Vincent Peale devoted one of his nationally syndicated radio broadcasts called The American Character to talking about me and what I was doing with my life.
Well, you know, I always say that we have to lead by example, and our example makes sure that whatever we put into the world doesn't lie, my friend. So painting your own example and leading by example is always better than leading from within a pack, isn't it? isn't it? It's always important to sort of take the bull by the horns, isn't it?
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Absolutely, my friend. And I know that you got a Juris Doctorate degree, as you mentioned, from Hofstra University, my friend. And you've spent some time as an assistant district attorney, and you've been promoted throughout the course of your career several times, my friend. So tell me why the law has such a particular passion or place in your heart, and how you think we can all continue to advocate for individuals with disabilities.
Kevin, I really enjoyed the work I was doing as a vocational rehabilitation counselor. Part of my job was speaking before groups and organizations concerning non-discrimination and affirmative action for people with disabilities. And after many of my talks, I would be asked questions. And while I would do my best to answer those questions, I was always careful to caution the questioners that they should really consult with a lawyer about their concerns. And I guess it didn't take long before I started to think, there's no reason why I couldn't become that lawyer. I also have an older brother who is a lawyer who was practicing criminal law at the time. So I decided to leave my job at the Viscardi Center and go to Hofstra University Law School. And while I was there, I did an internship at the Nassau County District Attorney's Office. And I knew I wanted to devote my life and career to public service and to helping others. And now I found working at the District Attorney's Office seemed like the perfect place for me to do that. So I was very fortunate after law school to obtain a position as an assistant district attorney, where I worked for more than 40 years there. And I was promoted a number of times, eventually becoming a deputy bureau chief of our county court trial bureau, where I was helping supervise more than 25 other assistant district attorneys.
And I know that you also helped supervise interns as well, my friend. So tell me about mentorship and why that's so important to you as well.
Because I always felt that it's important to have a role model, to have a mentor, to have a teacher, somebody that you could look up to assure you that you can do certain things and give you an example of how to do it and how to accomplish something. So I was always grateful for the opportunity that I could mentor students, to show them what needs to be done to go to law school, to obtain a position as an assistant district attorney, to be a trial attorney, and how to function to do that in the best way possible. And I got a lot of satisfaction knowing that now I was helping others. Throughout my life, I've received a lot of help from a lot of different people. And it's been so rewarding to me to be able to give back something to the community, to be able to help others. And mentoring others was one way I was able to do that.
Yeah, absolutely. And Ken, if I asked you to define a barrier-free future for folks with disabilities, what's your greatest hope, and how would you define a barrier-free future for individuals with disabilities?
Well, Kevin, when I think of barrier-free, I think of not only physical barriers, but attitudinal barriers as well. So many people have the attitude that somebody with a disability is totally disabled and can't accomplish anything. And one of the things we need to work on is eliminating those attitudinal barriers. Now, I've been fortunate to be living here in the United States, where in 1990, they passed the Americans with Disabilities Act that helped eliminate a lot of the physical barriers to get around. And it also tried to eliminate some of those attitudinal barriers as well by making it a law for people that they could no longer discriminate against people with disabilities. And I think when I think of a barrier-free environment, I think of it both physically barrier-free, where somebody, whether they be using a wheelchair or whether they be visually impaired or hearing impaired, to be able to function in society, to get out and around in public without too much assistance, and also to be able to go to school and get a job without people discriminating against you.
Yeah, Ken, outside of hosting this podcast, I also talk to businesses about the importance of hiring folks with disabilities, and I'm fascinated to get your perspective on the positive benefits of hiring folks with disabilities. What would you tell hiring managers or people in positions of authority within organizations about the benefits of hiring folks with disabilities?
You know, people with a disability really just want to work. They want to make the most of their lives, and they also want to help others. They also want to be able to earn a living and be productive members of society. And I think you find that when you look at companies that have hired otherwise qualified individuals who just happen to have a disability, they find that they're some of the best workers they've ever had. I might add that when I left my job as a vocational rehabilitation counselor, the center not only hired a full-time counselor to replace me, but they had to divide additional duties that I was doing between two other employees. And I might say also that in the district attorney's office, when ADAs eventually leave the office, they go through what's called an exit interview, where they tell a supervisor what they found to be some of the best parts of their job and some parts of the job that could be improved. And I was told on a number of occasions, some of the ADAs said that the best part of their job was meeting and getting to know me and working with me. And I don't say that to boast or brag. I'm saying that because I believe these people were saying they like the opportunity to meet somebody with a severe physical disability, because many people never come in contact with someone with a severe disability, and that they learned a lot by observing my attitude and my ability to function, and that helped them in their personal life as well. And I appreciate that, and I think employers would find that if they hire somebody with a disability who is otherwise qualified to do the job, that they will benefit a great deal.
Yeah, absolutely. It's all about setting a standard and an example for other people to follow. And Ken, I always say that life is about paying it forward in so many different ways. Would you agree with that?
Absolutely, Kevin.
Absolutely, my friend. And Ken, I'm also curious to ask you, how do you define the term extraordinary courage? What do you think that means to you?
Well, I define it, I think, a little differently than many people. I've been told that what I've done has been courageous. I think of somebody being courageous as a firefighter that goes into a burning building to rescue somebody, or a soldier in battle who is serving his country and maybe helping a wounded soldier. In terms of being courageous for people with disabilities, I look at more as somebody who has determination and perseverance to succeed despite the odds. But I prefer using a different word than courage, although I know that's often applied to people with disabilities. I prefer the words determination and perseverance.
Yeah, absolutely, my friend. And, congratulations is in order, my friend, because I know in October of last year, your memoir entitled I Dream of Things That Never Were. You talked about that earlier, my friend, and I know you put it in your memoir. So tell me about your memoir. Why was it important for you to write it, and what do you hope people get from it, from reading it, my friend?
Kevin, over the years, I've been told that what I've done with my life has inspired and motivated people to do more with their lives. And I've been encouraged to go out and speak to different groups and organizations and share what I've gone through and what I've done. And I felt that I could reach even more people by writing a book. And I titled that book, I Dream of Things That Never Were, the Ken Kunken story. And as I indicated, I like that phrase, I dream of things that never were, when I first received that glass paperweight from Senator Kennedy after my testimony. That's always meant a lot to me, because my feeling was just because something hasn't been done before doesn't mean you can't do it now. So I dreamt of things that never were, and I believe by putting it in writing, I could reach more people and share my story.
Yeah, absolutely, my friend. And Ken, just very quickly, I'm curious to ask you, for any young lawyers who may be watching this, because I know you spent decades in law, for any young attorney that may be watching this and wants to dedicate their profession, practicing law, to making a difference, I'm curious, what would be your best piece of wisdom and advice for those people? What are your thoughts there?
I think it's a terrific profession, whether you have a disability or don't have a disability. And I think that my advice is make sure you read the law, you understand the law, and you prepare yourself to be able to discuss it and apply it. But I think it's important for everybody to know what their rights are. And by becoming a lawyer, you learn an awful lot about what your rights are. And I feel that by having the right advocates, you get laws like the Americans with Disabilities Act passed into law that can help so many individuals. So I think it's a great field for people to pursue if they have the not just aptitude, but the right attitude to go into that profession. And I've been so pleased that I made that decision and have pursued that as a career.
Yeah, and in the few minutes Ken I have left with you this afternoon, I'm curious to ask you about how you think the concepts of hope and prosperity are interconnected. How do you think those two things intersect, my friend?
Kevin, I think the best way for me to answer that is to tell you a little bit about my personal life. Right?
Absolutely.
I've told you a bit about my educational background. I've told you a bit about my professional background. But what I'm most proud of is the way my personal life has developed. For those who don't know me, I married the woman of my dreams when I was 52 years old. Excuse me, when I was, 52 years old. And I have been just thrilled to be able to have a successful personal life as well as a successful professional life. And when I was getting married, my wife said she wanted to have my child. She wanted to have my baby. And that meant a lot to me. So we pursued in vitro fertilization. And through the miracle of science, my wife became pregnant. And I was present in the delivery room when she gave birth to triplets. We have three incredible, beautiful sons who are now sophomores in college. So to me, the way I look at what hope does for somebody, what achievements are important to people, to me, my best achievements, my biggest hope, my biggest joy, what I'm most proud of is being a good husband and a good father. And I might add that one of my sons, Joseph, actually is going to Cornell University right now. 50 years after I graduated, I have a son who's a sophomore there now.
Well, everything in life, Ken, I say, happens for a reason, doesn't it?
It sure does.
Absolutely. And Ken, I'm curious to get your thoughts on how viewing the world from the prisms that you view the world now. I'm curious to get your thoughts on how we heal divisions within society. You know, you brought up in vitro fertilization, and that's how your wife and you had your blessings of your three triplets, my friend. And I'm curious, how do you think we can work as a collective society to heal the divisions that divide us today? I'm curious to get your answer.
Well, I think more and more people are now recognizing that you need to look at each individual individually and to value them for what they are and to give them the opportunity that everybody wants to lead a useful, productive, and rewarding and happy life. And I think the more people are out in public with disabilities and come in contact with others, that other people observe that people with disabilities basically have the same hopes, desires, wants, and fears as everybody else has. And by evening the playing field, by making transportation accessible and physical barriers to eliminate them when you can, and making the attitudes more conducive to hiring people with disabilities, I think everybody benefits from that. And I've seen tremendous changes in my life since the more than 50 years that I had my injury. And it's very encouraging to see the progress we've made.
Yeah, absolutely. And Ken, my final question for you today has to do with your own personal and professional legacy, my friend, and how you want your legacy to be defined.
Kevin, I was actually honored just recently. When I retired from the district attorney's office, they actually named an award after me. It's now called the Ken Kunken Award, and it's given out by the district attorney's office every year to an assistant district attorney who's exhibited extraordinary courage, ability, and achievement in their profession. And I am thrilled that they've done that. I never knew of a trial attorney who was a quadriplegic before I went into that profession. And I certainly didn't know of an assistant district attorney who was a quadriplegic before I entered that profession. I would like to be remembered as somebody who worked hard, who studied a lot on the law, who helped others, and tried to do the right thing in court every day.
Yeah, absolutely. That's certainly an honorable a legacy to aspire to, my friend. Well, I want to thank you for being such a light of courage, inspiration, and determination, my friend, and for trusting me to share your story this afternoon. And I want to thank you for the privilege of engaging in conversation with you and for joining me this afternoon. It's most appreciated.
Kevin, I appreciate the opportunity to tell my story. And for any of your listeners who want to learn more about my life, I encourage them to read my book, I Dream of Things That Never Were, The Ken Kunken Story.
Absolutely. And just very quickly, if people want to get connected with you, Ken, what's the best way they can do that, my friend?
They can go on my website. It's www.kenkunken.com. And that would be the best way to get in touch with me.
Well, fabulous. Have a great day and keep moving mountains of impact, my friend. It was a real honor to have a chance to talk with you this afternoon.
Thank you, Kevin. I appreciate the opportunity to speak with you as well.